It doesn't matter where you start in life. What matters is the image you hold of yourself. You could be standing in the middle of nothing, surrounded by darkness, sleeping on a cold pavement, or having no roof over your head. And yet, if your mind sees something more, something greater, you are already on your way to a different life. The homeless girl in this story was not defeated by her conditions. She lived in the harshest of circumstances. People passed her by as if she were invisible. She had no money, no support, no fixed address. But she had one thing most people overlook. She had a vision. She didn't let her reality sink into her identity. She didn't say, "I'm worthless because I'm homeless." She didn't let society's judgment write the story of her life. She chose to believe a different truth. That's where it all begins. Belief. The world will reflect back to you what you believe about yourself. Most people think they're stuck because of what's happening around them. But it's not the world keeping them stuck. It's their thinking. That girl chose to believe in herself despite the facts. And belief is far more powerful than fact. You see, your self-image is like the thermostat of your life. If you believe you're destined to fail, no matter how much you try, you'll sabotage yourself. If you believe you're meant to rise, even when you fall, you'll rise again. The girl didn't allow her surroundings to set her internal thermostat. She saw something more in herself. Maybe it was a quiet whisper inside her head that said, "You are more than this." Maybe it was a picture she held of herself laughing, loved, successful, respected. That image, though it seemed distant, kept her warm in the cold, kept her moving when no one believed in her. When people look at successful relationships, they often say, "She was lucky," or "He must have felt pity for her." But luck had nothing to do with it. That man didn't fall in love with her because of where she came from. He fell in love with how she carried herself. Even in broken shoes and torn clothing, she walked with dignity. She didn't lower her head in shame. She wasn't begging to be rescued. She didn't define herself by her poverty. Her presence spoke louder than her pain. She understood that self-respect isn't about having money, a house, or polished looks. It's about knowing that you are worthy regardless of what the world sees. And here's the truth. Energy never lies. That man felt something powerful in her, not desperation, not neediness, but a rare kind of self-assurance, a kind of inner beauty that only those who've been through the storm possess. She wasn't trying to attract someone. She was being someone. And that changes everything. Most people wait for the world to validate them before they believe in themselves. They want someone to love them so they can feel lovable. They want money to feel successful. They want compliments to feel beautiful. But that's backward. You must feel it first. That homeless girl already felt rich in spirit. She already felt lovable. She already knew her value. And that energy pulled in what matched her internal state. You cannot rise beyond the image you hold of yourself. Your life will always reflect your deepest beliefs. If you think you are small, unworthy, or broken, life will hand you experiences to match. But if you think you are powerful, deserving, and capable of love, even when you're at your lowest, you'll find your way back to the top. This isn't about fantasy thinking or wishful dreams. It's about understanding a universal truth. You are not your environment. You are not your past. You are not the story others tell about you. You are the story you choose to tell about yourself, and that story creates your vibration, your energy, your frequency. The girl knew this without needing to be taught. She didn't wait for perfect conditions. She started with what she had, a strong mind and a vision. She may not have had a mirror to see her reflection, but she saw something greater with her inner eye. And that inner picture became her compass. Every day she walked a little taller, thought a little clearer, felt a little more grateful. Even in the face of hunger and rejection, she stayed connected to that image. And that's what changed everything. It wasn't a rescue. It wasn't a miracle. It was a shift in self-perception. It was a decision to live by belief rather than by sight. To hold on to the power within rather than collapse under the pressure outside. The moment she began to see herself as someone worthy of love, someone with a future, someone with value, she became magnetic. That's when her world started to change. Negative feelings are not enemies. They are messengers. Most people are afraid of their emotions because they've been taught to suppress them, ignore them, or run from them. But the truth is, emotions carry powerful energy. That energy, when properly understood and directed, can become the very force that moves your life forward. Fear, shame, rejection, anger, they all have something to tell you. They're not meant to destroy you. They're meant to wake you up. The girl in this story didn't just wake up one day and suddenly stop feeling hopeless. She had nights when the cold pierced her skin and tears soaked her cheeks. She had days when people walked past her as if she didn't exist. The rejection cut deep. The shame was loud. But here's what made the difference. Instead of letting those emotions paralyze her, she faced them. She sat with her pain and listened. She didn't pretend to be okay. She didn't fake strength. But she did something most people don't. She refused to let those feelings define who she was. Emotions are energy in motion. Think of them like waves. If you resist them, they crash over you. If you avoid them, they only come back stronger. But if you ride them, they can carry you somewhere new. She learned to ride those waves. She learned that feeling broken wasn't the same as being broken. She let the pain rise. She let the tears fall. And she used that rawness to connect to something deeper inside herself. That's where the transformation began. When you're in pain, your mind tells you to shut down. It says, you'll never make it. You're not enough. This is your reality forever. That voice becomes loud and convincing. But you must understand something. That voice isn't truth. It's fear dressed as reason. It's doubt disguising itself as logic. And if you don't learn to challenge it, it will rule your life. The girl didn't let that voice win. Every time it told her to give up, she whispered back, not yet. She didn't need to feel positive all the time. She just needed to feel willing. Willing to feel, willing to move, willing to try. Most people want to wait until they feel motivated, inspired, or confident before they take action. But that's the trap. Waiting keeps you stuck. The truth is, you don't overcome negative feelings by avoiding them. You overcome them by using them. When she felt the ache of being ignored, she used it to connect deeper to her self-worth. When she felt invisible, she reminded herself that her value didn't depend on who noticed her. Every negative feeling became fuel. Anger, she used it to push herself forward. Sadness, she turned it into compassion. Fear, she used it to sharpen her focus. She didn't let her emotions rot inside her. She let them move. That's the difference. You don't need to be emotionally perfect. You need to let the emotions pass through you, so they don't stay in you. Emotional energy that gets stuck becomes heaviness. Emotional energy that's expressed becomes clarity. That girl cried when she needed to cry. She screamed into the wind when the pain was too much. But after she let it out, she didn't sit in despair. She made a new decision. That's the key. Feel fully, then choose wisely. Feel the depth of what hurts, but then decide who you want to become. She understood that feelings are real, but they're not permanent. They don't last. They move. If you let them, your mind can lie to you. It will replay old wounds and repeat old stories. But your body tells the truth. The tension in your chest, the lump in your throat, the knot in your stomach, that's unprocessed energy. She didn't ignore that. She got quiet, listened to her body, and breathed through the discomfort. She didn't push it away. She embraced it. That allowed her to regain her power. The moment she stopped being afraid of her feelings, she started gaining control over them. That's how real change happens. Not by pretending everything is okay, but by admitting it's not, and choosing to rise anyway. The greatest shifts don't come when you feel good. They come when you feel broken and decide to keep going. Pain, when processed, becomes power. Emotion, when understood, becomes energy. That girl understood this deeply, and that understanding became her weapon. She no longer saw pain as punishment. She saw it as a lesson. She didn't resent the sadness. She used it to remind herself what mattered. She didn't hate the fear. She used it as a compass, because fear always points to where growth lives. And so, day by day, she stopped fighting her feelings and started flowing with them. That flow created emotional intelligence. And that intelligence created self-mastery. Love doesn't follow logic. It follows energy. It doesn't care about social status, background, or possessions. The heart doesn't respond to wealth or appearance alone. It responds to frequency. That's why the rich man didn't fall in love with the girl's circumstances. He fell in love with the way she made him feel. He wasn't drawn to her because of pity or curiosity. He was drawn to the silent confidence she carried, the inner radiance that had nothing to do with money, makeup, or material comfort. In a world obsessed with appearances, most people focus on impressing others from the outside. They polish their look, fake smiles, talk louder, act stronger. But inside, they're exhausted, insecure, and disconnected. The girl had nothing to prove. She wasn't trying to be noticed. She wasn't pretending to be anything she wasn't, and that authenticity became her power. In her silence, there was strength. In her stillness, a magnetic pull. She didn't seek validation. She embodied value. People often ask, why would a man who has everything fall for a woman who has nothing? But that question is based on a false premise. She didn't have nothing. She had a presence that money couldn't buy. She had resilience that couldn't be taught. She had emotional depth, kindness in her eyes, and a groundedness that felt safe. That man may have been rich in possessions, but she was rich in character. He felt that. He sensed it beyond the surface. Frequency is not about sound. It's about emotional vibration. Every person is like a radio station broadcasting energy. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. That girl wasn't vibrating at the frequency of desperation. She wasn't operating from lack, even though she lacked everything. She was aligned with self-worth, gratitude, and dignity. And that frequency cuts through all illusions. You can fake charm, you can fake intelligence, but you can't fake vibration. Energy is honest. It speaks before words do. When you walk into a room, people feel you before they hear you. That's what happened when their paths crossed. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't try to convince him. Her very being spoke louder than any rehearsed line. She was real, raw, unpolished, but real. That was enough. Society has conditioned us to think relationships are based on status compatibility. That love happens when two rhythms align. But the truth is, love has its own language. It speaks through the soul. The man wasn't looking for perfection. He was looking for connection. And in the most unlikely person, he found exactly that. She didn't make him feel needed. She made him feel seen. She didn't flatter his ego. She touched his spirit. She didn't chase him. She simply was herself, and that was magnetic. Her energy reminded him of what truly mattered: authenticity, depth, emotional presence. While others tried to fit into his world, she stood firmly in her own essence. That's rare. That's irresistible. The world teaches people to compete, to be prettier, richer, more accomplished. But true love isn't earned through competition. It's received through alignment. She didn't rise to meet him in status. She invited him to meet her in truth. And because she lived in that truth unapologetically, he had no choice but to respond to it. She had nothing to hide behind. No glamorous wardrobe, no curated persona, just herself, raw and whole in her brokenness. That wholeness didn't come from comfort. It came from survival. From the nights she spent choosing hope, when there was none. From the mornings she woke up still believing in love, even when the world gave her every reason not to. That inner richness was the very thing the man didn't know he was missing. He had built empires, made millions, attended exclusive circles. But in her presence, he felt something real. something untouched by society's expectations. He didn't see a homeless girl. He saw a woman who refused to be defined by her pain. He saw light in her eyes that no struggle could dim. And that light called to him more than anything material ever could. Love flows in where the energy is pure. She was vibrating with honesty, with humility, with self-respect. She had let go of needing to be accepted by the world, and in doing so, she became irresistible to someone whose soul was craving realness. That's the paradox. When you stop chasing love and start being love, it finds you. She didn't act small to make others comfortable. She didn't inflate herself to be noticed. She simply stood in her truth and let her energy speak. And that energy reached the heart of a man who had seen everything, except someone like her. She reminded him what authenticity felt like. She awakened something in him that money had numbed. He wasn't rescuing her. He was recognizing her. Recognizing a spirit that had endured but remained kind. A woman who had faced the worst and still chose to be soft. In a world of noise, she was quiet. In a world of speed, she was present. In a world of masks, she was real. And that was the rarest thing he had ever seen. Your reality is not a fixed outcome. It's a mirror. It reflects the beliefs you hold, the thoughts you think, the story you tell yourself day in and day out. If your mind is filled with fear, lack, and doubt, your life will echo those vibrations. If your mind begins to shift toward belief, worthiness, and growth, the world around you cannot help but respond. The homeless girl didn't change her life by luck or accident. She changed her mind, and that changed her energy, and that energy changed her path. People often misunderstand how transformation happens. They think it's external. They think it's about money falling from the sky, someone giving you a chance, or fate delivering a miracle. But real change is internal. It starts the moment you decide to no longer think the same way. That decision doesn't require anything but willingness. No degree, no approval, no permission. Just a deep, quiet commitment to believe something better is possible, and to act as if it's already yours. The girl in this story could have drowned in despair. She had every reason to. No shelter, no comfort, no support. But somewhere inside her, she made a shift. She stopped focusing on what was missing and started feeding what was possible. That shift wasn't instant. It wasn't flashy. It was quiet and consistent. Every time her thoughts tried to spiral into hopelessness, she reached for a better one. I am more than this. This is temporary. Something greater is forming. She didn't say these things because they were easy to believe. She said them because not believing was too painful. Your mind can be your prison or your freedom. It depends on how you use it. When she stopped letting her circumstances decide how she felt about herself, the chains started to fall off. When she stopped looking around for reasons to feel worthy, and instead chose to feel worthy from within, the energy around her began to change. She didn't need proof that life would get better. She became the proof. Her thoughts became aligned with her highest self, not her lowest moment. Most people are waiting for evidence before they change their belief. They wait for someone to love them before they feel lovable. They wait for success before they feel confident. But that approach keeps them stuck. Life doesn't work that way. You must first shift your internal state, and only then will the external world match it. That's not magic. That's alignment. The girl understood this intuitively. She didn't beg life to be different. She became different. Even when she had nothing, she chose to think as someone who had something to offer. She chose to carry herself with grace, speak to herself with kindness, and walk with her head held high, even when her pockets were empty. That change in mental posture signaled a new reality into motion. It was like tuning a radio. Once she found the right frequency, everything she needed began to align. This is not about pretending or faking it. It's about becoming it, from the inside out. She didn't lie to herself. She acknowledged the pain, the struggle, the loneliness. But she didn't stop there. She kept going. She took those feelings and used them to fuel a new story. She rewrote her narrative one thought at a time. She turned, "I'm lost," into, "I'm learning." She turned, "I have nothing," into, "I am becoming." That level of mental discipline doesn't come from privilege. It comes from hunger. The hunger to live, to love, to rise. Every single day she reminded herself that her thoughts were either building a prison or building a path. She chose the path. She took ownership of her inner world, even when her outer world was falling apart. That's where true power lies. Not in controlling the world, but in mastering your mind. Thoughts are not harmless. They are creative. Every thought you repeat becomes a belief, and every belief becomes a pattern. Those patterns shape your energy, and that energy shapes your reality. She became conscious of her patterns. She stopped letting her pain choose her thoughts. She stopped letting her past dictate her future. She started creating from her vision, not her history. That shift, from memory to imagination, from reaction to intention, was the moment her life began to change. She didn't have to wait until things looked better. She made them better by thinking better. That doesn't mean she never felt down again. But it means she never stayed there for long. Her thoughts became her ladder out of the darkness. She no longer entertained the idea that she was broken. She stopped identifying with the version of herself that had been abandoned, hurt, overlooked. She began to mentally align with the version of herself that was loved, chosen, and worthy. And the more she stayed in that mindset, the more the world began to reflect it back. This is the essence of transformation, changing your mind, and holding that change long enough for your life to catch up. She held the vision even when her eyes told her it was impossible. She chose faith over fear, clarity over confusion, direction over despair. And little by little, the world responded. Not because she forced it, but because she became it.